Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. And today we are going to take a turn from what has become our usual fare for the last month. And rather than talking about the shitstorm that is the Trump election, the Trump legal wranglings, and the last flailing vestiges of the Trump presidency, we're going to talk about what the current Trump presidency and the current government, we still do have one, they still do have jobs to do. We're going to talk about exactly where they are on all the coronavirus relief. And we're going to take a look at the economy. We're going to take a look at what the government's doing for corona. And then we're going to take a look at where people are at, rather than statistics that just represent people. Well, to start with, Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, pulled the plug on coronavirus emergency lending programs over Fed's objections. More importantly, he has also asked for more than $425 billion to be returned. Apparently, all that money that they allocated during the CARES Act that was going to go to people who were struggling, businesses who were struggling, homeowners who were going to lose their homes, renters who were going to get evicted. Yeah, all that money that was voted on and was allocated, they slow walked the shit out of actually giving the money out. And there's more than $425 billion of that money that still has not been dispersed. And now that Trump has lost the election, Mnuchin wants to pull the plug on everything, saying that, we intended for these programs to end at the end of the year because we're politicizing driving people into the ground. And again, keep in mind when we bust out statistics like X number of millions of Americans are, going to lose their house. They're actual people. That's not just a statistic. It's not, hey, here's a number, compare it to this number. They're actual human beings. They're actual people. And they're being driven into the ground by purposeful government inactivity in the face of losing. This is Trump and his people burning down the house on their way out so that 4 years from now, Team Red can point to Team Blue and go, look, Team Blue failed. Yeah, they're not going to mention the fact that they completely hamstrung them and lit billions of dollars on fire just so Team Blue couldn't spend it because yay, Team Red. And as tribalism increases, the general overall well-being of the American populace continues to fall, but they don't care about that because fuck you, that's why. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said that he won't support extending several of the emergency loan programs his agency set up with the Federal Reserve that are set to expire at the end of the year. In a letter to the Fed, Mnuchin said the Fed's innovative lending program for small and medium-sized businesses would not be extended. He also said he wouldn't extend the Fed's municipal lending and corporate credit loan programs. Very briefly, for those of you who aren't aware, 46 of the 50 states in the United States of America are tax negative. Okay? When your state creates an annual budget, the overwhelming amount of that budget comes from federal grant dollars that go into specific programs. So when Steve Mnuchin cuts off programs like municipal lending means they loan money to cities and towns and counties so that they can continue to make payments on loans that they have taken out to do stuff like build road or build a new fire department or add a new wing to the hospital. Yeah, that's what Steve Mnuchin's getting rid of, okay? That's your municipality. That's your town. That's your county. That's your city. And your public infrastructure is now going to be vastly reduced because Steve Mnuchin is angry that Team Red lost. Also, here's your reminder. That's Steve Mnuchin. That's the guy who's taking away $425 billion allocated for pandemic relief and ensuring that the Federal Reserve doesn't have any more strength to put money into cities and counties and towns that you live in, places where your kids go to school. Yeah, this guy. This is the guy who just took away all that money because Team Red lost. I'm so angry. Also, Steve Mnuchin literally has more money than God, so he doesn't care either way. It's just a game to him. We're just all pieces on a board game. I'm the boot, you're the thimble, your next door neighbor, I don't know, he's the car. Whatever, Steve Mnuchin don't care. He's the banker. Senator Pat Toomey, a Republican from Pennsylvania, could become the head of the Senate Banking Committee if the GOP retains control of the upper chamber, has been calling for the programs to be wound down. The federal programs lend money on easy terms and are designed to make sure that financing continues to flow through the economy. Economists have learned that credit flows are a lifeline for the economy. No shit! Now, what does this mean to people, to actual human beings who are not statistics, but actually live in your neighborhood? Yeah, actual human beings. Let's see what's going on with them. They lived paycheck to paycheck before the pandemic, then their worst nightmare came true. Yeah, this story and other stories located within it and tangentially to it are going to become the norm. These are not tales of outliers, okay? These are your neighbors. These are your friends. This is your family. Vicky Honeycutt lost her job in March, one of millions laid off in the early days of the coronavirus pandemic. To make matters worse, Honeycutt, an executive assistant at a bank, had no savings. Bi-weekly paychecks of around $1,600 after taxes were devoted almost entirely to bills, including $1,100 in rent and medical expenses for her daughter, who has a rare autoimmune disorder. Honeycutt's husband, James, is a veteran with a disability that makes it difficult for him to work. Over the last few months, she's applied for more than 100 jobs, but nothing's panned out. She and her family are now being evicted from their house in China Grove, North Carolina, where they've lived for 10 years. Quote, "My husband and I used to kid around and say we're just a paycheck away from being homeless. Our worst nightmare came true." Again, your dreams of tomorrow are of no consequence to the wealthy and their capitalistic system that is overrun by plutocrats who make all the decisions for you, including if and when legislation to help keep you in your house or apartment will be passed. What we're seeing now is things getting considerably worse. That deteriorating financial condition is largely a result of mass joblessness and the absence of an adequate federal support system to prop up lost wages in recent months, according to economists. This wasn't the case in the early months of the COVID recession. Also, stay tuned in a couple minutes. I'm going to tell you what the unemployment rate actually is. Because apparently that is a misquoted statistic that gets bandied about on the daily to make you feel better about our shitty economy that's being propped up by hopes and dreams. Back in March, Congress passed $2.2 trillion in federal relief, the largest in U.S. history to combat the economic downturn. That law, known as the CARES Act, established measures to increase unemployment benefits by $600 a week, make aid available to more workers like the self-employed, and send one-time stimulus checks of up to $1,200 to individuals. So, that $1,200 check? Yeah. You signed the back of it, you gave it to your landlord. Your landlord then flipped it over, signed the back of it, gave it to the bank to pay the mortgage. And essentially what we did was what's the word I'm looking for here? Laundered $1 trillion from the federal government through people living at the margin into half a dozen banks, okay? Then, after that, people in government gave all their corporate buddies the heads up on exactly how to apply for the PPP small business loans, and then they siphoned a whole bunch of money away to corporations and places like, the Catholic Church. Yeah. So all of that happened, and even that is now gone, and Steve Mnuchin wants the rest of the money given back to the government. In 2011, Michelle began working at Pier 1 Imports, a home goods retailer in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She was promoted several times over the years, eventually becoming an assistant manager. Even then, she made just $15 an hour. Rent, car insurance, and other monthly bills swallowed her entire paycheck. Hey, for all you bootstrap people, why don't people just get jobs and work hard and grind and make something of themselves? Well, here you go. Here's somebody who started at minimum wage, worked there for years, worked her way all the way up into management to get a whopping $15 an hour before tax, okay? That's the ceiling, that's not the floor. Michelle's life became harder when she developed a severe case of carpal tunnel syndrome from moving heavy furniture all day. She eventually needed several surgeries and wasn't able to work as many hours a week. Quote, "There was no way to prepare for an emergency," she said. By the way, she's 50. Not a teenager, she's 50. Then Pier 1 was forced to shut its doors for good, another business casualty of the pandemic, and she lost her job. More than 17 million Americans had hurtled into unemployment by the peak of the economic crisis in early spring, and even after 6 months of declining unemployment, nearly 6 million more people remain jobless than before the recession. Again, I got an addendum after this. Additionally, nearly 7 million more people are being forced to work part-time, despite wanting a full-time job due to current economic conditions, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Meanwhile, the unemployed outnumber job openings by a 2-to-1 margin. You know why? Because the federal government isn't backstopping businesses. They're only backstopping large corporations whose shares they own so that they can make more money in quarterly dividend checks. Oh, what's that? You don't own a bunch of stocks? Tough shit. Another 1 million Americans entered poverty in the last few weeks as coronavirus pandemic drags on. Quote, for a few months you can get by drawing down savings, borrowing from friends, not paying the electricity bill so quickly. But the longer the recession continues and the more people are below the poverty line, the more troubles people are going to face. I've said this before, I will say it again. Being poor is one of the most expensive things in the world. If you've never been poor, you have no fucking clue. The overall job market recovery is also slowing down with an unexpected week-over-week rise of 742,000 Americans filing for first-time unemployment benefits just last week. Until there's a solution to the continued spread of the virus or a vaccine is widely distributed, we're facing a bad labor market that's not going to solve this problem. The only thing that is going to solve this problem until there's mass deployment of a vaccine is going to be federal assistance. And if the federal government chooses inactivity, people die. An even bigger cliff is coming at the end of the year when the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance and the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation programs are set to expire. That will leave up to 12 million unemployed workers with no benefits at all, according to a report from Century Foundation. And again, not a statistic, actual human beings who live in your neighborhood. While a big increase in poverty may not be immediate because it's measured as a cumulative income over the past year, deprivation will rise sharply while the poverty rate continues to increase slowly. We will see a more pronounced increase in deprivation than poverty, but people's available money to pay for food and rent will drop sharply. Now, this is the BLS website, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's actually run by the U.S. government. They put these numbers out every month. This just is not the set of numbers that the Department of Labor puts out every month when it sends out its monthly unemployment statistics that they release to the media. If you look down here on the bottom, U6 unemployment is the closest to actual labor rates that we have to go by in this country. U6 unemployment rate is total unemployed people plus all persons who are marginally attached to the labor force plus total employed part-time for economic reasons as a percent of the labor force. See, the U3 unemployment rate, if you're not actively looking for a job through an unemployment center, yeah, they just say that you're not participating in the job market and they remove you to keep the number lower. This last column right here, this is October of 2020. So when the government is telling you that unemployment is at 6.9%, it is actually at 12.1%. And that doesn't even include all the unemployed people. However, I don't want you all to get down because I know it's Thanksgiving weekend, and apparently there are so many of us who have so much to be thankful for. I thought I would let you know that the Dow Jones Industrial Average today, for the first time in history, climbed over 30,000. Now, if you're an actual human being who's a member of the working class, who is fortunate enough in this day and age to have 2 or 3 jobs that severely underpay you, and you have no stocks, and you have no bonds, and you have no pensions, this means absolutely fucking nothing. However, if you're one of the 15% of Americans who actually own a chunk of stocks, dilly dilly, tally ho, stock owners. Hold your pinky out when you drink your tea while everybody else is sitting on the sidewalk with an empty coffee cup in their hand, asking people for change because the 15% of people who own stocks and the assholes like Steve Mnuchin are looking to completely bury the working class in such a way that they can profit from said burial. And I'm sure some point right after that, they're going to find a way to reanimate everybody's fucking corpse and make them go back to work for free because now they're not actual humans, so they won't have rights. Fuck. So there you go. There's my pre-Thanksgiving dinner shit to be thankful for video montage for you to let you know what's going on while we're all being distracted by Orange Man Bad and his Nosferatu-led legal team, okay? My name is James and I'm from the internet. I'm out. Peace.